family, and friends, I would like to offer my sincere condolences to everyone in this room. Before we begin, I would like to ask everyone to please silence down or power off your phone. Thank you.
In the rising of the sun, we remember. In the blowing of the wind, we remember. In the opening of buds, we remember. We remember. In the blueness of the sky, we remember. In the rustling of the leaves, we remember. As the new year starts and ends, we remember. We remember. When we're weary and need strength, we remember. When we're lost and sick at heart, we remember. When the joys we yearn to share, we remember. We remember. So long as we live, he too shall live. He is now a part of us. He is now a part of us. He is now a part of us. As we remember, we remember. As we remember. Good morning. Today we come together to remember a life well lived. We come together to celebrate nearly 100 years of an amazing life of Shelly Gorin. I'll say his name was Sheldon Gorin now, but everybody knew him as Shelly. And he was someone who I imagine each one of you felt at some time like you were privileged to have all of his attention for those moments you were with him. Because that was the kind of man he was, giving his focus, his attention, his love to those around him, wanting to help others be better, do better, sharing his wisdom and his love for life. And so today we, yes, remember and grieve and mourn, and there will be tears, but we also celebrate what was an incredible, amazing life, a full life, a life filled with joy and friendship and adventures and excitement and so many amazing stories. We'll hear some of those stories today. Shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid. I have set the eternal always before me. God is at my side. I shall not be moved. Therefore does my heart exult and my soul rejoice. My being is secure. For you will not abandon me to death, nor let your faithful one see destruction. You show me the path of life. Your presence brings fullness of joy. Enduring happiness is your gift. These are words from Psalm 16 that reflect exactly what we are doing today as we come together to mourn, to remember, to celebrate the life of Shelly Gorin, a true mensch. And today we bring our loving support and presence to Bonnie, his wife, to their dear family, all of their children, grandchildren, stepchildren, each one. We bring our support and friendship here to show up, as Shelly taught us all, that showing up is really, really what means so much. Death has taken our beloved Shelly, whose love united us in life, and death cannot sever that bond. For his companionship that we shared along life's path and which continues through the tenderness of memory, for the gifts of his heart and his incredible mind that brought joy and happiness and that are now a precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give our thanks to God. And so in times of grief, we turn to our scriptures as the 23rd Psalm here on the wall. That has brought our people and many people comfort in difficult times for the many, many generations, telling us of our kinship with the Creator in light and darkness, in joy and sorrow, in life and death. And we also turn to our more modern poets to bring inspiration and comfort during these days. And so I share with you the words of The Dash, a special poem that Bonnie is particularly loved, and it says so much about who Shelly was. This poem is written by Linda Ellis. I read of a man who stood to speak at a funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke of the following date with tears, but said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time they spent alive on earth, and now only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we lived and loved and how we spend our dash. So think about it long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. To be less quick to anger and show appreciation more and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read, with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you lived your dash? We take a moment to pray quietly, to think of our own special memories with Shelly, what he taught us, what we learned from him, and then we will hear beautiful words sung.
With me in my heart, with me in my soul, wherever I go, you're with me. it might seem like I'm alone, you're with me. All I have to do is think of you. There is no time, no place there's ever been an empty space. 'Cause you've been with me, you're the spark, the breath of life, the perfect part that fills me with strength and wisdom and peace. You're with me day and night, even when I question what I know is right. You're with me.
And all I have to do is think of you. There is no time, no place. There's never been an empty space. 'Cause you've been with me, you're the spark, the breath of life, the perfect part that fills me with strength and wisdom and peace. You're with me day and night, even when I question what I know is right. When I lose sight and find myself and start to pray, and right away I know you're with me. Thank you. That was beautiful. Jody Rosenthal, Stefan, and Cantor Lisa Siegel. Thank you for the beautiful music. Thank you. At this time, we will have a few family members and dear friends speak about Shelly's life. And first, it's an honor to call forward Michael Stein to share his eulogy for Shelly.
Thank you for all coming. Shelly always said that life was about showing up. Today, you have all shown up, and we are here to celebrate Shelly. It was very important for Shelly to show up, and here we are to celebrate him. Whenever I would have a problem or any issue, the person I would seek guidance in was Shelly. He would listen intently, he would focus with great compassion, and he would think for a moment, and his advice was always, do the hard things first. And this is hard, but here we go. I can hear Shelly saying to me now, Hazak, Hazak, Hazak. Let us be strong in Hebrew. Let us be strong. Let us strengthen others as well. In old times, the congregation would recite this phrase at the conclusion of each aliyah. Shelly would want us to be strong today for ourselves and for each other. Now let me tell you a little bit about Shelly's life. Shelly is the quintessential American story. The journey from a poor Cleveland upbringing, but proud, to a successful and diverse business career. Shelly was born in Cleveland, October 25th, 1924. Shelly's baby brother, Homer, a blessed memory, was 3 years younger than Shelly. He passed away in March of 2023. They were best friends and they spoke on the phone every day. Shelly tells the story how his mother would describe her sons. Homer was sweet. Homer was kind. Homer was gentle. And then there was Shelly. That's how the story went. Shelly adored his brother, and his parents adored both of them. In 1944, Shelly graduated from Western Reserve University and was admitted to Harvard Law School. Shelly loves to tell the story how his parents put him on the train to go to Boston for his first trip ever outside of Ohio. When he came to register for classes, he realized he was there a week early and couldn't afford to stay in Boston. So his mother asked him to take the train home to Cleveland, where she shopped for some basic necessities for him to return, sporting a cardboard box where he returned to start classes that fall. Harvard was one of Shelly's greatest joys in life. He was the editor of the prestigious Harvard Law Review, and he outlived his entire class of 140 classmates, surpassing his friend and retired Judge Art Litz, who passed away 1 year ago to this day. I received yesterday a note from the dean of the Harvard Law School that read, "Your extraordinary father led a wonderful life and leaves an everlasting legacy." From Harvard at age 23, Shelly returned to Cleveland to join the law practice of his uncle, mentor, and inspiration, Harry Gottfried, his mother's oldest brother. In 1948, he became a 1/3 full partner in the law firm of Gottfried, Ginsberg, and Gurin, one of the largest and most prestigious law firms in Cleveland. The law firm had offices in Cleveland and Columbus, Miami. Shelly today would be very proud that some of his former young lawyers are here sitting with us today. Rick Rivets, Neil Kozakov, who's on live stream, and Michael Weiner, who all were young lawyers at Ginsberg, Gottfried, and Gurin. While practicing law, Shelly developed some relationships with some of the most prominent business luminaries in Cleveland and around the country. His lists of business achievements are many, but I'll share with you a few of them. In 1956, Shelly and his law partner Eddie Ginsberg bought a Cleveland trucking company, Glen Cartage Trucking. In 1962, he bought Letter Terminals, a stevedoring company in Cleveland. You can Google stevedoring, because I didn't know what stevedoring was either. But in 68, he sold the company to George Steinbrenner, the owner of American Shipbuilding at the time. In 1961, Shelly founded U.S. Realty Trust. It was the second REIT in the country to be listed on the New York Stock Exchange. They were a major player in the mortgage and property ownership business. They owned some of the most prestigious buildings around the country, including the Terminal Tower in Cleveland, which at the time was one of the largest buildings in the country at 52 stories. U.S. Realty was the lender on many high-profile projects, many that you would know, some you don't know, including the Ocean Reef Club in the Florida Keys. Shelly would be proud today that his dear friend Ezra, who worked at U.S. Realty, is here with us today, and Michael Feiner, his cousin, who couldn't be with us today, also worked at U.S. Realty Trust. In 1964, Shelly first met George Steinbrenner, who was from Cleveland. He and George Steinbrenner were very, very close friends. They even traveled to Israel together, and George was not Jewish. In 1973, Shelly and George organized a group to buy the New York Yankees for $8.5 million. And when preparing to close on the Yankees, George came up short, $400,000, and Shelly loaned him the money to close on the deal. Unfortunately, in 1979, Shelly sold his interest in the Yankees back to George. Not a good move, Shelly. I think that investment would be $350 million in today's dollars. Also, in the 1970s, Shelly and his partners bought an interest in the Cleveland Browns, the Chicago Bulls, and the Cleveland Browns Stadium. So not only was he an extraordinary businessman, he had a love of sports as well. In 1973, the business that Shelly's most proud of is his purchase of Great Lakes Towing. He bought that company from John D. Rockefeller. That company was founded in 1898. It's the longest continually run business in the state of Ohio, and he was very proud of his tug business. He grew the company with operations in Puerto Rico, Charleston, Pearl Harbor, Pensacola, and Fort Lauderdale. Shelly was chairman emeritus and active in the company right up until his passing, and Joe Stark, our dear friend and CEO of the company, will give a eulogy later. As impressive as Shelly's educational and professional accomplishments are, this is not what defines Shelly. These were only accomplishments. What defined Shelly was his character, his integrity, his ethics, his morals, his philanthropy, his tzedakah, his family, and his friends. That's what defined Shelly. He had numerous friends for many, many years of his life. Many of you are here today, too many to mention by name, but no friendship has endured longer than Shelly's friendship with Albert Ratner. He and Albert were friends for over 85 years, and I fondly remember visiting Albert about a year ago with Shelly, and Albert challenged me to a ping pong match. I said, "What do you mean, Albert?" He says, "I want to challenge you in ping pong." So there, Albert, then 95 years old, went on to beat me in a game of ping pong. Shelly and I had the privilege of being with Albert about a month ago in Cleveland to celebrate the 125th anniversary of the Great Lakes Group. On the subject of marriage, Shelly said he has a lot of experience after being married 4 times. So he was very quick to give me advice on women, which I didn't often seek, but when I did seek it, he would say something like this: "Never say no." He said, if you go into a jewelry store and she sees a nice piece of jewelry, you say, "Let me think about it." It's much easier than just saying no. And if the next day she still asks, then she really wants it. He was very generous, very, very, very generous to everybody, most especially my mother. Excuse me. I can go on and on about the many relationships and friendships Shelly's had, but without taking too much of your time, I'll share a few of the quotes that I've received over the past several days on Shelly. Number 1, it was never about Shelly, and it wasn't. It was always about the other person. 2, he was a wonderful mentor. His advice was almost always right. I will miss him. Number 3, it was such an honor, joy, and privilege to be among those who knew him and who could benefit from his wisdom, joy of living, and kindness. And finally, a life well lived, filled with passion and purpose. May we all be as fortunate. Thank you for being here today. Hazak.
Michael, thank you for those beautiful words and stories. There's so many more, I know, but you did a beautiful job. And now it's an honor, Skylar, to call forward. She's going to speak and share some words about her grandfather.
Hi. It is once in a lifetime you get to learn from someone with so much life experience. My entire life, I have been blessed with learning so much from my Grandpa Shelly. What some people would call old and wise, I would say young and knowledgeable. My Nana Bonnie kept Shelly young and hip all these years, and not to mention stylish. I never saw him in a bad outfit. His socks were always matching. Can you believe he had hair on his head for over 100 years? Besides for the outer appearance, what was most beautiful about him was on the inside. He was the most sweet, compassionate, kind, caring soul. He was so generous with his time and always wanted to be involved in the lives of the people who he loved. I will always hold our memories close and hold our conversations close as well. I do want to keep this brief, but in the light of him passing, I have chosen to share a recent conversation I had with him in the past month in Jackson. I asked him what his secret was. He looked at me and very quickly said he was lucky, but then he looked at Nana Bonnie and he said love. I'm so grateful to have had a grandfather like him. He really was a special man, not just to me, but to so many people. There will be a huge void in my heart with him gone. I will continue to look up to him and the amazing life he led for all the years to come. Let his beautiful spirit and curiosity for the world live on, and may we all learn to live life like Shelly.
Thank you, Skylar, for those beautiful words. And now we invite dear friend Joe Stark to share some memories.
My name is Joe Stark. I'm president of Great Lakes Towing. I was hired there about 33 years ago, and I remember the day of my interview. Shelly was there. I was being yelled at by Ron Rasmus. And Shelly closed the sliding door between the offices and closed the curtain too, because they had that kind of an office arrangement. And I always wondered who was the man behind the curtain. I've worked for Shelly, or I've known Shelly all that time, obviously, but in the last 8 years or so, I've gotten to know him much better because he's been my direct report. And in the beginning of that relationship, it was awkward because I was this young kid, I guess. He called me the young kid. And I referred to him as Mr. Gurin, which made sort of an awkward relationship between two people who are working for the same goals. Before I get into my eulogy, I want to say on behalf of all the employees of Great Lakes, we offer our heartfelt condolences to the Gurin and Stein families. The towing company is well known for having employees that work a long time. No, once you start, you don't want to leave the towing company. It's a very generous company, and everybody works hard. It's a close family. And a lot of those people who work for me now have called me or texted me and asked to please pass on their condolences. 100 years, it seems like a long time. Lots of change over the course of a century. But Shelly he never seemed to fall behind. He was always a little bit of a step ahead. He was no dinosaur. He was always on top of his game, and he was like a kid with the latest gadgets and technology. Over the last few days, or a couple days, I've received a lot of calls from business associates offering their condolences too. One of the first calls I received was from Marcy Kaptur, the congresswoman from Toledo. Shelly had friends everywhere. And I don't know how she found out so quickly, but she was one of his good friends. And he liked to take care of everyone. Friendship was the most important thing to Shelly. In all of his business dealings throughout his life, the friendships were always much more than the deals, much more important than the deals. Shelly had a way of bringing people together. Relationships were so incredibly important to him. And Bonnie, you were his best friend, especially the last 5 years of your time taking care of him. He was so lucky to have you to take care of him. I've known Shelly, as I said, for 33 years, and I've been reporting to him since 17. And I remember those morning calls when they first started. He called me Mr. Stark, and I called him Mr. Gurr, and eventually I figured out that I had to just start calling him Shelly. And that was his soft way of breaking the ice between us and making me feel more comfortable to be working with him instead of for him. He was an excellent leader that way, and he was a visionary. He was an ideas guy, and he was also an inspiring storyteller. His stories often included old friends and old business deals. I was always amazed how he could remember the names of all the players, even going way back. He knew every single person involved, and even some people who might have just been in the room. His stories always had a lesson, too. They were like a parable, and that's how he taught. That's how he was able to pass on lessons to me rather than directions. He gave me an example, and it allowed me to get to the same, use my own knowledge and experience to get to the same conclusion that he was looking for. He brought out the best in me and in the Great Lakes team. He gave me lots of freedom to try new opportunities. He encouraged and supported and nurtured and guided. He was my mentor and my friend and my boss all at the same time. He taught with little sayings. When we were unsuccessful with a bid, he'd say, "Joseph, some of the best contracts are the ones you don't get." Truer words were never spoken. And when considering a complicated business deal that maybe I wasn't so sure I was interested in, he'd say, "Joseph, for every deal, there's a suit that fits. It just needs a little tailoring." And he had a way of explaining a little further. But he never was a tough boss. He was a counselor to me. He was kind and generous, and he always wanted to take care of everyone, and he did. Everyone at the towing company, all of the people around him. He treated me like a son, and I'll miss him dearly.
Thank you so much, Joe. It's now an honor to call forward Joel Wolpe, who will be sharing some memories of Shelly. Thank you, Joel.
Some of us believe that God has a hand in our lives, and at times like this, it's hard to have that feeling. The Yiddish term is beschert, predestined by God, and I truly believe I was meant to meet and become a friend of Shelly's. more than a friend, a man I loved and respect. Back in the late 90s, I had a second home in Jackson Hole, and I went to a party in Teton Pines. Bonnie and Shelly had a house there. I don't remember this, but I must have met them because I had a book with all the people I cared about and I wanted to get to know better. And Bonnie and Shelly's name and phone number are in that book. We never got together in the 1990s, and then 20 years later, Nikki and I moved to the Gables Club. And again, I would have never met Bonnie and Shelly, even though we were in the Gables Club, but Nikki had a conversation with Neil Sakalos, and somehow out of that, we became friends. And from that point on, when Bonnie, Abel, Judy LaBelle, and Nikki would go out for dinner and abandon Shelly and me, Shelly would call me up and say, "Do you want to have dinner?" I always said yes. I heard many of the stories that Joe and Michael talked about. I even learned a few I hadn't heard. We would sometime have dinner at their condo, and we would have a feast. And Shelly would make me one of his vodka drinks. If you've never had one of those drinks, I've been working on being able to hold two of them. I never got there. In fact, after one drink, and when I would leave, I wasn't sure whether to push the button to go up or down in the elevator. Shelly and I, we would talk about legal matters. We'd talk about Shelly's life, which could be a book. Oh, by the way, it is a book. We talk about my golf game. We talk about a house we were building in Asheville, and Shelly would bet it's not going to be done until 2026. He's winning that bet. We still got punch list items. And then we would discuss his accomplishments, and he would always say, "Oh, it's just luck." Shelly, this is not luck. It's his magnetism that would draw people to him. And whenever he would have an opportunity, he would make the decision on how to act or react, and he always did the right thing. But the amazing thing was when we'd eat at the restaurant in the Gables Club, we would sit at the same table right next to the door. There was not a single woman that would walk by us that didn't stop to give Shelly a hug and a kiss. I sat there like chopped liver. There wasn't a single man that didn't walk by that wanted to shake Shelly's hand and talk to him and ask him questions. And as you watch people walk up to him, you could see their admiration and their respect and their love for him. Sometimes we couldn't even get to the restaurant because they would stop us along the way just to talk to him and to tell them how much they thought of him. Since Shelly's 99th birthday, I kept telling him, "You show up, I'll show up." And I never thought that God would decide that he needed Shelly to help him straighten out our messed up world. But who else would he ask other than Shelly to come and sit by his side and to help him make decisions? When I have been thinking about Shelly over the last couple days, I hear a song in my head. It's a Billie Holiday song. It was published in 1938. The song is titled, "I'll Be Seeing You." It was written by a man named Irving Kahal, and the music was by Sammy Fain. It goes like this. I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places that this heart of mine embraces all day through. In that small cafe, the park across the way, the children's carousel, the chestnut tree, the wishing well. I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day and everything that's light and gay. I will always think of you that way. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you. Shelly, I miss you. I love you. I will never forget you. No way. I thought about that.
A little impromptu here, only because I like you, Joel. I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places that this heart of mine embraces all day through. In the small cafe, the park across the way, the children's carousel, the chestnut trees, the wishing well, I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's days, in everything that's bright and gay. I'll always think of you. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you. I want to start with that little twinkle in Shelly's eye, because every time I spoke with him, which was really many, many opportunities, he had a little twinkle. Now, he did have an injury, actually, early on in his life that injured his eye, but that's not what I'm talking about. I am talking about that little mischievous little twinkle he got, and I just loved it. I think everyone did, because when you were talking to him, you never knew what was coming or what funny story he might tell or lesson or just quirky little thing he might say, which always just got me. I don't know. I just loved being with him. I'm just going to share a few of the additional stories because, yes, I was very honored and blessed to get to spend a lot of time with Shelly, and he would tell stories and share lessons in life, and we would talk about Judaism and Israel and the values and the things that matter to him. He didn't talk to me about business very much, which was just fine. But I do have a copy of the book, which I'm very blessed to have, and that shares all the stories. But so many of these I knew from him. So Shelly's life is truly incredible. It's the journey of a boy from a poor but proud upbringing in Cleveland to a successful and diverse business career with a strong commitment to human rights, intellectual thought, love of art and culture, friendships that ran deep, relationships from all kinds of people from all different backgrounds. Shelly was born in 1924 in Cleveland, Ohio, and his father, Nate, was also born in Cleveland in 1898 as the youngest in a family of 7 children. Shelly's mother, Rose, was born in 1899 outside of Budapest in what was then a part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and emigrated with her family to the United States in 1902. Shelly And his family really, along with so many families, struggled through the Great Depression. And he remembers that his family was very poor, but they never thought of themselves that way. They always had food to eat and clothes to wear, and he was eternally grateful. Nate and Rose never owned a home when Shelly and Homer were growing up, and the family constantly moved from one neighborhood to another. Shelly had great memories of his family, who were the central part of his early life. He was so appreciative of the protection and environment, the loving environment that his family gave him, and the peace of mind that he says, and he credits them with allowing him to flourish and maximize his potential. As boys, Shelly remembers that his first job was as a newspaper boy, and he would wake up at 4:30 a.m. so that he could finish delivering the papers before 8 a.m. and go to school. Not surprisingly, he skipped a few grades in elementary school, allowing him to graduate from high school at the age of 16. At that time, Shelly's family was the only Jewish family in his Cleveland Heights neighborhood. At one point in elementary school, Shelly told me of a local bully who would wait on the street to taunt and threaten him as he walked home from school. The bully called Shelly a dirty Jew. Shelly didn't even really know what he was talking about and told his mother, who explained that such a slur was a horrible thing to say. The next time the bully, a bigger boy than Shelly, started with the taunt, Shelly lit into him, and they got into a physical fight. Shelly said that while he was small for his age, he knew how to fight, and Shelly said the bully never bothered him again. Michael spoke about Shelly's life from graduating from Western Reserve University and his experiences at Harvard Law School, and then his incredible career. I want to focus a little more on some different aspects, including his commitment to Jewish life. He was deeply involved in the Jewish community and different Jewish organizations. He served as the president of the Cleveland Jewish Federation. Al and Audrey Ratner especially helped him get involved there at the Jewish Federation. Shelly became an important political fundraiser and a friend to a number of candidates and elected officials. I love this story. I have to share this one. In 1968, Shelly and George Steinbrenner had teamed as co-chairs as the major fundraising dinner set on April 4th, 1968 for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee in Washington, D.C. As guests were being served their dessert, Shelly was handed a note that Dr. Martin Luther King had been shot and killed. Shelly took the microphone to convey the assassination news to the shocked audience. Shelly said, "This sad night is not a night for a party, and our dinner is adjourned." In 1983, Shelly's law practice closed, and he had moved to Florida and met his wife Bonnie in 1993. I love the story of them meeting. I'll let others tell it at other times, but it's a really good one if you haven't heard it. And they did meet through mutual friends, Leonard and Carolyn Miller, and Shelly had sworn that he would never marry again. But when he met Bonnie, he fell madly in love and was really captured by her beauty, her kindness, her warmth, her honesty, and family values. And Shelly often said, "She's a keeper." They were married in 1994 and discovered how well they fully complemented each other, and they both embraced each other's children and grandchildren. Bonnie and Shelly have spent many wonderful times together in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, the place they love so much. They've traveled to so many countries, and as of the writing of his book, it said he had slowed down a bit to share many beautiful experiences, but I don't know that he ever really slowed down that much, honestly. In discussing his approach to businesses and business in general, Shelly reflected on how he enjoyed success by a combination of honesty, hard work, intelligence, calculated risk-taking, a strong network, and a strong commitment to do good while doing well. I was honored to officiate along with Jody Rosenthal for Bonnie and Shelly's 25th anniversary renewal of vows ceremony. And at that time, he reflected on his deep affection and appreciation for family and friends. He was the epitome of a person who lived life well and shared his joy by living generously and philanthropically. While Shelly's successful career did help define him, he credits his family and his friends for both his success and his happiness. He told me many times how fortunate he was to have been raised by the family he was raised by, and the values he learned from them made all the difference. I must say that Bonnie's two sons, Michael and Peter Stein of blessed memory, have been a great source of joy and comfort to Shelly for the past, he said 25 years at their anniversary. Now it's been 31 years. And Bonnie's grandchildren, Josh, Rachel, Skylar, and Luna, all had a very close relationship with Shelly. And he was there when each one was born. His own children, each in their own way, have been an important part of his life. But Shelly was a father figure to so many people. He taught. So many people looked up to him and learned from him. And Shelly, in his own words, he said, of all the blessings I have been given in my life, the most important to me, by far, are my family and friends. Up until recently, Shelly was still involved in business, still on top of world events, even knew the trends, that's true, and loved to talk to people and hear about their lives. What impressed me so much about him was that with all of his amazing accomplishments and extraordinary stories, he always wanted to hear about the people around him. It wasn't only about telling his stories at all, in fact. Finally, to celebrate his 94th birthday many years ago, he reflected on his life in this way. These are his words. He said, I accept no responsibility for being born, the color of my skin, selecting the country in which I was born, my initial religious affiliation, the size of my brain, my initial sight, hearing, or sense of smell, the initial structure of my body, or my childhood education. I promised myself that I shall not hold anyone accountable for any happenings over which they have no responsibility, nor will I pass judgment on any one of those events. You may wish to do the same. To the best of my ability, to be compassionate, understanding, and helpful to any person trying to achieve their responsibilities. I should also note that Shelly thanked his friend George Platt, who helped him to write the book that many of us are lucky to either have, or if you don't have one, you can get a chance to see and read even more about his amazing adventures. But for me, I was blessed to spend time with Shelly just talking. And I thank Bonnie for always making sure that that happened, that we could spend so many Shabbat dinners together, so many times just listening to each other and spending that wonderful time. He had a profound respect for Judaism, which had a significant role in his life. He had studied and knew what he was talking about and always had questions for me about Jewish traditions and Jewish continuity, what was happening in the Jewish world now. So the lesson in this week's Torah portion is profound and meaningful, considering it's a portion of the week right now for Shelly's funeral. It's called Ekev, and in it Moses recounts the important lessons of his life to the people of Israel before they enter the Promised Land. One of those lessons is to thank God for our blessings, reminding the people of Israel that it all comes from God. Shelly, though he truly was a self-made man, seemed to understand that deeply. He understood and said it so often that he was blessed in so many ways. He understood that he must give back and help others, the true tenets of Judaism. He even taught that to his family, making sure that they each understood the value of philanthropy, of giving, of tzedakah, as Michael said. May the precious memory of Shelly and that twinkle in his eye forever be a precious memory and a blessing for all who knew him, as we all say, Amen. I'd like to invite all who are able to please rise for the words of El Maleh Rachamim. El Maleh Rachamim, שוכן במרומים. המסי מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה. עם קדושים טהורים כזוהר רקיע מזהירים. את נשמת שמואל שהלך לעולמו בעול הרחמים יסתירהו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום על משכבו ונאמר אמן. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Shelly, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. Please allow the family to exit the chapel first, as they will need to go straight to the graveside for interment. I'd like to call forward and invite forward these pallbearers. The family was not able to reach each of you beforehand, so you may not be aware that you're a pallbearer, but if you would, please come forward to accept the honor. Cliff Gorin, Mark Gorin, Ezra Katz, Rick Rivets, Joe Stark, Joel Wolby, Cesar Pazmino, Jose Schwenk, and Gary Friedlander. Please come forward. And everyone else, if you would, please wait for the family to leave. Above the rainbow, why, oh, why can't I? Oh, no, you're thinking of Beth Shalom.
Well, yes, that's true.
Yeah, but he, right,
That's right,
right. He was at, right,